So what I will do is whatever presentation I have covered in the online session, I will use the same ones, but run quickly through that, and then we will have a discussion on that. Okay, so we had the discussion in two parts. One is the part one, where we had the background about the design by analysis. What is the need of design by analysis? So it is through different examples we have seen that this design by analysis is required in many differing situations, and there are different types of analysis. So we have seen that there are different types of analysis which need to be considered. So the static analysis and dynamic analysis are the two major types, and thermal. So these three would constitute the major analysis type that routinely design engineer would be doing in this design of pressure equipment by analysis route. So in static analysis, we have linear and non-linear, and dynamic we have buckling and eigenvalue is part of that analysis. In more complete sense, the dynamic analysis will cover the wind seismic analysis as well, but that is not covered in our discussion in this course. The thermal analysis is important because most of this equipment are operating at different levels of temperature, and the temperature distribution constitute one of the important aspects of stress analysis. Fatigue and fracture are relatively low low quantity requirement, so there are maybe 10% of total analysis will be fatigue and fracture type. And piping and structural, they are not essentially a different analysis types. They are just uh, specialized softwares are available to do piping analysis and structural analysis. The general purpose software like ANSYS can do this analysis, but they are heavily, the piping and structural analysis softwares, they are heavily integrated with the design codes. So that way they are given a separate position. Okay, let's move ahead, and features, I will not cover this. Okay, we need to remember that finite element software require true stress, true strain data. So whenever you are doing analysis, as long if you are in the elastic zone, it doesn't matter. There is hardly any difference between true stress and true strain. But if when you are in the plastic zone, you will have to provide the true stress strain data when you are doing the analysis. Depending on the computational power that you are having, you may require different types of model when you are going in elastic in the plastic zone. So the most simplest of all model is elastic perfectly plastic model, where the material behaves plastically, or it flows without any resistance after the yield strength. Bilinear is where after yielding it follows a less slope straight line, and the true stress strain curve. So all these three options are available to us. And most of the software give option of choosing the material model. So if you look, dig into the ANSYS interface, you will find that the various material models will be available to you. Okay, there are different failure theories. The one which are adopted by ASME Section 8 Division 2, which is most widely used design by analysis code, is von Mises failure theory. Few years back, they were using maximum shear stress theory in order to make the design more optimum. So they were getting competition with the European codes who had already adopted von Mises theory of failure, and ASME followed that. The design by formula route still follows the principal maximum principal stress theory. the different types of loading coming on the vessel. So when you are doing the analysis, you should take care of the different load combinations. So later on, we have seen that there are certain standard load combinations. Those are which are prescribed by the design codes, and these are in order to do that, you have to take comprehensive list of all loadings those are acting. So the obvious loadings like pressure, dead weight, then vessel content. There are additional loads which are missed, such as piping attachment loads, the local stresses around the supports. The thermal stresses are the most deceptive of the all, and if you don't consider the thermal gradients which could arise under certain abnormal conditions, the design could land up in very serious situations. There are occasional loads which do not act throughout the life of the equipment, but they are important, like wind, seismic, snow loading. And although you don't design fully for these loads, the moment earthquake happens, your equipment or the part of the equipment should not fail. So you should take care to that extent. And there are some occasional loads like erection, transportation, shore field. They all have to be included in the design report. Okay, this table gives the different types of loads. So that is for information. And there are 8 standard design combinations. So for example, if we consider this, so this is pressure plus the deadweight case, which are to be considered in the design. So when you are doing analysis report, all these cases must be included in that report. Okay, so that was what was covered in the first part, which already in the classroom lecture, that is in the real physical classroom lecture, we had already covered this topic. So the online video is a repeat of that. And now we will look into the bigger topic which we covered. So here we are going into more depth and considering the various finer details of the design by analysis. For doing the analysis, you require various properties. The essential ones are the material properties, including the modulus of elasticity, Poisson's ratio, and if you are doing in plastic zones, then you will require stress strain curve. And for fatigue and creep analysis, you will require additional data as shown here. You should know that when you are using a particular design code, what all that code contains. So it gives you the overall contents of ASME Section 8 Division 2, which we are using as a basis for the further discussion. So in this code, there are 9 parts, out of which part 5 is the one which describes design by analysis section. So it is about 50 to 60 page document, and it gives you all the details which are there. Within the part 5, there are separate topics, out of which the 4 which I have selected for the classroom discussion are the 4 essential or mandatory checks which need to be done in the design by analysis report. So those 4 we'll be discussing next. There are other requirements as well, but that we need not cover for this course. Okay, this slide gives you overall bird's eye view about various types of checks that are essential as per the design report. That means your design report should have a section corresponding to each of the 4 branches. So the first branch, each of them represents a particular failure mode. And for each failure mode, there are options are provided. So for example, for doing plastic collapse check, you have 3 options. That is elastic stress analysis, limit load analysis, and elastic plastic analysis. Many of you, or rather most of you, have already submitted your course project report and the corresponding video. So I think most of you have done a good job, and what I am doing is sort of repeat of what you have already considered. So I'm just uh, having to look at the other side to admit the people who are in the waiting room. So that's what is distracting me. Okay, so we are at the 4 mandatory check. This slide gives you the overall bird's eye view of all different options. And for conducting these mandatory checks, there are sub options which are listed in the vertical tree. So in this presentation, we'll be going one by one from plastic collapse check to local failure check to buckling check to the cyclic failure check. So the plastic collapse check, essentially, if you have some components, so for example, if you are considering a vessel on which some attachment or nozzle is welded, and when internal pressure is acting, you don't want this nozzle to break at this junction and fly off. So this is the most riskiest position. So this is what we don't want, and the plastic collapse check does that. So we don't want, the plastic collapse indicates that the entire cross section is undergoing full failure, and there is a fracture of the through thickness fracture, and the entire vessel body has been broken. To avoid that, there are 3 options. The first one is elastic stress analysis. About 20 years back, this was the only option which was available, and rest of the options, they evolved over the last 15 to 20 years. So these are more recent, and the elastic stress analysis being the classical approach, it is still popular today, although it has got some ambiguities and interpretation uh, arguments are there. So now we are at the plastic collapse, that is the first mandatory check, and within that the elastic stress analysis we are discussing. In elastic stress analysis, as the name indicates, we are considering the material to be perfectly elastic. So the stress strain curve would look a straight line. So the stress can take any level beyond yield or 3 times yield or whatever, 10 times yield also. And it will simply ensure proportionality between stress and strain under those conditions. Here we have to consider that the stress state that we obtain from, I think Vishal wants to ask something. So Vishal has raised the hand. So does he have any question? Okay, so I assume it is by mistake. So the stresses here we are talking, they are not the stress what we generally talk in terms of single stress, but it is a full stress state. So at any point of the vessel, so if this is a vessel cross section, if you take any point and zoom it on, you will find that it is subjected to 3 normal stresses. So that is sigma x, sigma x, sigma y, sigma z, and there will be 3 shear stress components which will be acting there. So there will be tau xy, tau xz, and so on. So there are 6 stress components at every point of the vessel body. So all these components need to be considered, and they are to be collected together in terms of the equivalent stress. So the von Mises criteria is nothing but to consolidate these 6 components in order to find it. First into a scalar number. So this number is checked against the failure criteria. So von Mises check has to be within 0.67 times yield strength. So that is one of the criteria to be used. Okay, so in order to do this analysis, the point to be noted is that you need to have the full stress distribution available at every point of the body. Okay, the stress categorization is the heart of this particular method. So in the elastic stress analysis method, we have categorization based on location. So as I described in the video, if you have a vessel based on the location, so if you are near the discontinuity, so I'm drawing here head to shell junction. So if you are near to this junction, it becomes a local stress, and whereas if you are away from that, it becomes a general stress. So if your investigation in this particular zone, so this is a general stress, and in this location, it is the local analysis. Okay, before we go into the second category, let's look at the third category. The third category is based on the nature of loading. So you may be analyzing area which is away from discontinuity or near to the discontinuity, depending on what is the nature of loading. So the loadings are of two types. There are self-limiting and non-self-limiting. So I reverse the order. The self-limiting loads are for secondary category, and the non-self-limiting are for the primary category. So the secondary category are self-limiting loads. The example is thermal stresses or any displacement induced stresses. So if you have some machinery attached and that machinery pulls the equipment by controlled displacement, then that becomes an example of secondary loading. Why it is called self-limiting? Because when you are giving a finite displacement, once that displacement is achieved, there is no further loading which is going to occur. And while that displacement is getting achieved, the material may enter into plastic zone, and once it enters in plastic zone, its resistance to that motion decreases. So if the material is in the elastic zone, so if you consider a bar which is fixed at one point and you are pulling it from other end, as you start increasing this particular load, the stress will keep on increasing linear to the load. Whereas if we are giving, instead of load, displacement loading, if you are pulling by finite displacement, beyond certain displacement, the material will yield, and after that, the stresses will not increase, because the stress strain, nature of stress strain, it limits the stress levels. So those are the secondary stresses which have got higher allowable limits, and primary stresses which originate from non-self-limiting loads like pressure or dead weight, they are having lesser limiting load. Now, the categorization based on stress type, it is essentially considering what is the variation of stress. So if you are considering this is some wall of pressure vessel, so how the stresses are varying from point A to point B on this cross section, the nature of that variation. So for example, if we consider that nature to be as given here, this particular distribution can be converted into some average stress, some linear component, and then another non-linear component. So the constant component is the average component is the membrane, the bending is the linear component, and peak is the remaining component. So for each of the limit, there are different allowable which are defined, and these are allowables are defined through the ASME Hopper diagram. So this gives you for different categories. So primary, general, membrane stress. So what is the limit is defined here. So similarly for different routes, different allowable stresses are defined in this particular diagram. So this is used for establishing for at a particular location how much is the allowable stress is there will be defined through the ASME Hopper diagram. So you need to calculate the stresses using finite element analysis, and you need to validate or check whether they are safe or not safe based on the ASME Hopper diagram. In order to use the Hopper diagram, you should know the classification, your investigation, what is the pertaining classification of the stress type you have to get from this particular Hopper diagram. So, okay, so the process by which you obtain the membrane bending and peak stresses, that is known as linearization. So this is the linearization requirement. So to produce membrane bending and peak stresses, you use a procedure which is called as a linearization procedure. So in this procedure, you have to define a cross section. So linearization is never at a point, it is always at a cross section. So you cannot say linearized stress on the inner surface of vessel. Linearized stresses are always across a cross section and never on the at a particular point. There are different approaches. The one which is recommended by division 2. So division 2 itself gives the different approaches, out of which the third one is one which is popular, and it is integrated into most of the general finite element software such as ANSYS. So in this method, you calculate uh, the stresses along the stress classification line. So that is the one which defines the section. So there are some rules as to selecting these classification lines. And once you have decided the classification line, along that line, you need to obtain the stress distribution. So again, remember that there are 6 stress components. And for each component, you'll have to do this classification separately. So we'll get sigma X membrane, sigma Y membrane, sigma Z membrane separately. And then you use the failure theory to combine these stresses. So you may use Wien-Moisses to combine the stresses. So the mathematical expressions for obtaining these components are given here. You need not remember them, except you have to understand the fundamental. Like in the quiz problem or in the examination, you may be given a distribution of sigma x from in terms of certain nodes. So you'll be asked what is the value of membrane stress. So it is nothing but the average value of the stress along those points. So we are considering here, so it is continuation of linearization. So what I spoke at the membrane, at the component level, you'll have to do categorization and then arrive at the combined analysis. Next, we are considering the, okay, this is a case study. So the case study takes you through actual case. So I think it is explained in the video. So I'm not going here. So the analysis, if it is 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional, it will require more or less similar approaches. Okay, another alternative for doing the plastic collapse check is known as limit load analysis. In the limit load analysis, so this is elastic we have done. Now we are looking at second alternative. So this is alternative for doing plastic collapse. So either you can do elastic or you can do limit load analysis. In limit load analysis, there is no confusion about the stress category and classification. You simply assume the material to be elastic, perfectly plastic, conduct the analysis and find out what is the collapse load. The collapse load, it mathematic or when you are doing the analysis, whenever your finite element program fails to converge because of uh, uh, extraordinary deformations at certain section, so that is considered numerically, can be considered as the limit load, or the load at which such phenomena occurs is known as the limit load. And that is how you establish the initiation of failure by limit analysis criteria. So that is what is being described here. So in this case, as I said, you will be considering the material as elastic perfectly plastic. So the material is elastic perfectly plastic. The initial part is having very high slope that correspond to Young's modulus. So that is why it is looking almost vertical. And then the material becomes plastic. And you have to keep on increasing your load. So the horizontal axis here, the x-axis is the load axis, and the y-axis is to check how your structure is behaving. You choose any point on the structure and track its displacement. So initially the displacement will grow linearly, and after some time it will, when the material, that entire cross section goes in the yield zone, you will find that the displacement will start growing rapidly, and at one point the program will throw error saying that it cannot converge. So that can be considered as the limit load. So if it is a pressure loading, that is a limiting pressure, and there is some factoring which is required. So if you find limit load to be something, or it has to be within, it should be beyond 1.5 times design load. So if a design pressure is 1 unit, the limit load should be higher than 1.5 units. So if your design pressure is 1 bar, the limit pressure should be more than 1.5 bar. So there is 50% margin between the limit load and design load. Next, we are looking into the local failure analysis. So unlike the plastic collapse, where we are checking the full cross-sectional failure, in the local failure check, we are checking every spot of the vessel, whether it is failing or not failing. For that, again, there is elastic and elastic plastic, out of which elastic analysis is what is getting covered. So in this case, there is an approximate method based on the elastic analysis, which is very simple. You have to simply add the 3 principal stresses at every point, and you have to check that it is within the 4 times the allowable stress. So it is the programs like ANSYS provide you the simple scripting where you can add the stresses and plot the variation of addition of stresses. Using that, you can plot the stress contours, and so this is prepared using the script in the program, and you can check that the highest value of that addition is within the allowable limit. Next, we are going through the buckling check. So that is the third check. So this is something which is most of you would not be familiar with. So we here the buckling analysis is essentially the stability check. So it involves first doing the eigenvalue analysis, or you need to find out the mode shape under the load, what snapping modes that structure would take. That is the first step. And then under the application of load, you find out what is the critical load under which the buckling will occur. So that is what this particular thing would do. So again, here there is elastic, elastic plastic, and elastic plastic with more geometric details. These are the 3 options available, and I have explained that with respect to a tall vessel. So you will find at the end of this analysis the different buckling modes. So you have to take the mode corresponding to the smallest value of eigenvalue. The eigenvalue is related to the buckling pressure through an formula which is defined in the code. So you have to use that to find a critical buckling pressure, and your external pressure should be less than that buckling pressure. Remember that the buckling need not happen only because of external pressure. It can happen under the internal pressure as well. So for example, if you are having elliptical distant attached to a cylindrical vessel and subjected to internal pressure, because of rapid change of shape near to the knuckle portion, so this is known as knuckle portion, there is a bending which tends to happen, bending moments gets created because of the difference in the geometry which is beyond knuckle and after knuckle. And this moment tends to create the compressive stresses on outside surface of the disc end. And these compressive stresses tend to buckle the head. So the head would buckle in this fashion under the action of internal pressure. If the head is thin enough, you will find the buckling failure will occur. So that also can be captured using the method that we are discussing. The fatigue analysis is the last mode. So in the fatigue analysis, this being more numerically or computationally rigorous or demanding analysis, they give option what is known as screening criteria. I did not cover that in our video lecture. So this screening criteria, it allows you to eliminate the need of doing fatigue analysis. So under certain circumstances, which are defined under the screening criteria, you can eliminate the need of doing fatigue analysis because it involves a lot of computation. So obviously the customer would like not to spend money on doing unnecessary calculations if it is obvious that the analysis is not required. So some obvious cases where the fatigue analysis is not mandatory are covered under the screening criteria, and those who do not pass that criteria, they would be doing the cyclic loading check. So here again, there are different alternatives. We are discussing the elastic analysis approach. And as a part of fatigue analysis, there is something known as ratcheting, which we are covering in the last part of this session. So fatigue analysis is nothing but using SN curve, which you have learned in the 6th semester. So you have the materials SN curve for different materials. The SN curves are available in the code. You calculate the peak stress using the finite element method, and then see to it that whatever required life corresponding value of stress, your stress values are below the corresponding values as given by the SN curve. So it gives illustrate through a problem. Here the feature is that you need a very accurate value of peak stress. So whatever peak stress based on which you are calculating life, you have to ensure or validate that that value is converged value, so that otherwise you can make this very coarse mesh and you will get very high value of peak stress, and as a result you will unnecessarily providing higher thickness to meet the code requirements. So accurate value estimation requires proper convergence study of your problem, which involves one of the means of doing that is by controlling the element size in the region where you are doing the analysis. So this is an SN curve and through which you calculate what is the life. And now we come to the last part, that is the ratcheting check, where there are again different options. The ratcheting essentially it means it is a progressive incremental inelastic, that is plastic deformation that can occur in a component subjected to mechanical and thermal loads. So essentially what we are looking at here in this ratcheting check is when you are applying cyclic load under the action of first cycle, the body will deform to some extent, and when you unload it, it will try to come back. If it has gone in the plastic zone, it will not be able to come back to its original position. But but it will have some permanent deformation, and if this permanent deformation keeps on increasing cycle after cycle, so that is where the ratcheting check comes in picture. It should not increase uncontrolled way, so the deformation should be limited to certain value. It should stabilize at particular deformation level. So that is what is confirmed in the ratcheting analysis, and that can be done in analysis by plotting the displacement at any point or stress level at any point versus time. So on the x-axis you have time, and on y-axis you have either stress or you have displacement. You check that the stress or displacement at a point, it stabilizes. If it is ratcheting is taking place, then you will find that this particular growth would be diverging, and at one point you will find that the deformation will become too great or the stresses will become too high values. So either way, it is a failure condition. Okay, so that is summary of what we covered in this topic. So to recap this, uh, the purpose of this session was to just relook at these points, and if you have any questions, then we can address them. And as I said in the beginning, we have a short quiz which will the quiz already is there online, so some of those questions are again taken here just to sync you in this discussion. So we will have I will release that particular quiz so that you can just connect with this topic, and then we can move ahead. So I'm releasing a quiz which will appear on your screens. So it is a multiple choice question. So some of them will have multiple answers, some of them will have single answer. Okay, so let's discuss, not discuss, but we will just quickly go through the questions. So the first question was, which of the following checks are mandatory as per Section 8 Division 2? So buckling, local failure, plastic collapse are the three options. And the creep failure is not part of the mandatory checks. So can somebody tell which is the remaining option which is not appearing here? So other than plastic collapse, local failure and buckling failure, which is the fourth mandatory check? Can somebody speak out?
Fatigue check.
Limit load.
Fatigue is the correct
Fatigue
answer.
and ratcheting.
Yeah, ratcheting is a part of fatigue. So that is the one. Okay, good. The second one is, which of the following stress categorization is based on location? So the location based is general and local stress. So that is almost 88% of you are given the correct answer. The primary and secondary stresses are based on the loading type, and the membrane bending and peak stress are based on the distribution of the stress across a cross section. So which material model is used in limit load analysis approach of plastic collapse check? So it is elastic perfectly plastic is the correct answer. The perfectly elastic is used in elastic analysis, and elastic perfectly plastic is used in the limit load analysis. So in limit load, you are finding out the load where the entire structure becomes, it collapses. So that is what you are trying to find out. And the last one is ratcheting analysis involves which of the following? So ratcheting involves plastic deformation. First option is correct. It involves cyclic loading. That is correct. Ratcheting doesn't involve SN curve use. SN curve is used in fatigue analysis. In ratcheting, you don't need SN curve, so you don't require stress versus life curve. You directly through the analysis, you will come to know how many cycles, after how many cycles the ratcheting would lead. If ratcheting is happening, that is the uncontrolled deformation is happening. Every cycle, some small increment is taking place. After how many number of cycles, the structure will go beyond acceptable stress or deformation level will be available through analysis, that is finite element analysis. So SN curve is not valid, and evaluation of progressive deformation is yes. So that is also part of deformation. So first, second, and last is correct. And yeah, so that is where I wanted to cover in this particular session. Any other questions you are having on this topic, we can discuss it, and then we'll have a general question answer if you have. So I have just superficially seen the submission of your course project, which is on this topic. So you have done pretty well, and I need to check thoroughly afterwards. Okay, so any questions from your side? Yes.
Sir, does buckling occur in horizontal long vessels also?
Yes, horizontal long vessels also the buckling would occur. So if you consider a horizontal vessel as shown here, and it is supported on two saddles, one thing is the buckling which will occur because of the external pressure. So if you are having vessel under external pressure, then vertical and horizontal doesn't make any difference. So the buckling will occur only because of the pressure, and the orientation doesn't matter. So here what we are discussing is the because of its self weight, it will deform exaggerated in this sense, and the top portion here is subjected to compressive stresses. So the top wall, if you look at the entire circumference, the almost significant part of the uh, material above the neutral axis would be under high compressive stresses, and this particular part will buckle. So you'll get a sort of kink may form at that particular point. It happens. I have seen that failure occurring in the workshop during the testing. So when you pour the water weight was so much for testing purpose. Because of the water weight, the upper portion of the vessel underwent huge deformation, and the buckling occurred. So yes, so that's a good question. If that is what you intended to know, maybe have I answered your question, or you had something
Yes,
else in
sir.
your mind?
No, sir. I understood.
Yeah, thanks.
Sir,
Yeah,
sir,
sorry.
sir, local buckling failure will have the same procedure or something else?
No, there is no concept of local buckling. Either you can do the full vessel analysis, or you can do the local analysis. So for buckling, it is usually the entire structure is taken, because it is interdependent on how the vessel, how the component is supported and all. So taking out a small subsection and doing buckling analysis is difficult. So in order to specify proper boundary conditions, it is difficult to do local analysis. So buckling analysis is usually done on the full vessel with all its supports and other things properly modeled. So to answer your question, there is no local concept of local analysis for buckling. Usually the entire structure is considered, and it captures all local zones where buckling will occur.
Okay, sir. But if the failure is on the local region,
Yeah.
then how we will do the analysis? Same
No,
procedure.
like for example, what figure I have drawn here. So let's say this particular zone is going to buckle because of the self weight. There is some huge internal weight is acting here, because of which uh, compressive stresses on the top upper part of the vessel shell is very high. It will buckle. So for capturing this buckling, you cannot take a local section. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So any other questions are there?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Why would someone do limit load analysis?
This is not very clear answer. I will post this answer. It's a good question. So I don't recollect the exact uh, or the exact answer to this question.
Sir,
What
is it,
I said, yeah,
sir, is it,
yeah.
what do you call it? It's for testing. You check the limit load for testing purposes.
No, it is not for testing. It is for one of the failure to prevent one of the failure mode. But instead of checking at the full cross section, here you are checking at local spots or at every point of the vessel. So it is something
Okay, sir.
like for fatigue failure, you will check the peak stress. So peak stress is a localized stress. So it occurs only at one particular point. So the local failure check does something similar to that. But for fatigue analysis, we know that peak stress has got, as a concept, it is related to the life, the highest stress level which occurs there. Whereas the local stress has got some other theoretical basis, which I will find out and put on our classroom. Yes, so your question is not answered, so I will answer it. The significance of local failure check, I will put on our classroom. Okay, any other question?
Sir, in buckling analysis, in the third
Yeah,
type, based on plastic collapse analysis,
right.
sir, is it the exactly same procedure as plastic collapse, but with compression effects?
Yes. Okay, so what you are asking is in plastic collapse check, if your vessel is subjected to external pressure, you will consider the material property as elastic plastic material model, and then you do the analysis and then you will obtain the stresses. In the buckling analysis, a similar approach is done till the time of the material model is there. But the difference occurs in the plastic collapse check. You are calculating the stresses and checking whether the stresses are within the allowable limit. So sigma induced less than sigma allowable. That is what you are checking. Whereas in the buckling, you are more interested in stability check. So there is no concept of stress values. So there is more of the stress versus strain, or the slope of your stress versus strain curve, how the deformations are going to differ. So if you are considering elastic plastic model, the deformations in the plastic zones are easier. So there the instability can occur at much easily as compared to the elastic zone where the material is more stiffer. So to answer your question
Okay,
briefly,
sir.
it is buckling analysis entirely different foundation than the plastic collapse check. One is based on stress check, another is on deformation check. So it is one is strain analysis, another is stress analysis. So buckling is not similar to the plastic collapse check, although the material model in
Okay.
both cases is same.
Okay, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Hello, sir. I have one question.
Yeah.
Sir, in buckling analysis check, we have to select the number of eigenvalues which depends upon shape of vessel after buckling. So, how to select the number of eigenvalues?
In general, 3 or 4 eigenvalues are sufficient to establish the failure. What happens is it is related to when you are doing buckling analysis, there are different zones which are candidates. So for example, if this is a cylinder, so you will have, let's say, different thicknesses are there. So if you are checking the buckling pressure, for thinner sections, it will be lower. For thicker sections, it will be different. So if you are interested in the thinner zone, the first 3 eigenvalues will capture the lowest mode, and that would be sufficient. But for some reason, if you are interested in the thicker zone, how the buckling would occur there, so there you have to cross, and you have some means of preventing the buckling in the thinner zone where it would occur. So, but in order to reach to the thicker zone, you have to cross and go beyond that. So in that sense, if you want to look into the different regions, study different regions, you require higher modes of failure. The lower modes will give you failure in the certain region, and the higher modes will depict the failure in the other regions. So the number of, how to decide number of modes is not there. Blindly you can give 25 number of modes. It will take more computer time, but yeah. So I have not seen anybody giving more than 10 modes for buckling analysis. So that is so in fact
Okay, sir.
yeah. Okay, so wish you take care in this trying times, and wish you all the best. And we will have next session. We'll discuss that on the classroom. Okay, so thank you all, and bye.